everyone, welcome back to the Capsule in Conversation. I'm Natalie Anderson, and this week I'm joined by broadcaster, author and entrepreneur Vicki Broadbent, aka Honest Mum, as we talk bossing it, practical parenting and pivoting your career path. So settle down, turn us up and get ready to join in with our conversation. Hello all, I hope you're all well. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's lovely to have you with us, and it's super lovely to finally be back in our glorious studio after 5 long months. Oh, how we've missed being here, drinking tea in our capsule mugs and getting told off for going over time because we're deep in chats. And we can't promise that we'll be any better today, given that we've got so much to talk about with today's very special guest, the brilliant and very lovely Vicki Broadbent, aka Honest Mum. Hi, Vicki.
That was a lovely intro. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. And thank you so much for being with us today. I mean, you are back in Leeds, which was your hometown. How is it?
Oh, it's lovely to be back. It's kind of it's weird when you come back when you've lived away, because you revert back to like your 16-year-old self with like your family, and you become a teenager again. It's like so bizarre, but no, it's really nice to be back. So thanks for having me. Sorry, my throat sounds a bit croaky. I've been talking so much, like my mum and dad and my friends. So I've lost my voice a bit.
I mean, to be fair, we've all, been kind of like locked up for 5 months. So to suddenly be like able to talk to people is, pretty amazing. So don't worry about that. It's fine.
Yeah, it's weird not to hug each other and to be sat in a distanced way, social distance way. But no, really important to do that.
I mean, Vicki, you've secured the label Honest Mum through your highly successful and award-winning parenting blog. You've been a keynote speaker for Marie Claire, Red and Mosaic, the Prince's Trust charity, contributed to government forums and led discussions in the House of Commons, given expert commentary on the BBC, ITV and Sky, and written a best-selling book amongst many other wonderful achievements. And so I'm asking you now, as an honest mum, was any of that as hard as being locked down with 2 kids and a business to run?
Oh my gosh, it's been a hard, long 18 kind of weeks. I'm exhausted, honestly. Like, I think it's a bit like I'm just feeling so super run down. You know, when you come back home and you've like just endured so much.
Well, I've been saying it's kind of like, I put out a tweet yesterday and I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel like I've hit a wall. But somebody then said it's kind of like a lockdown burnout. Do you know what I mean? That's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, we're all exhausted. We've had to homeschool. We've taken on so many jobs. I've been working like through the night so that I can catch up. I feel really grateful that I've still got a career and I've been busy over lockdown, because tech is a field that has boomed. And it's also been great because I've been the freelancers that work for me, I've been able to still, employ them in a freelance capacity and keep, they're all parents, so pretty much. So that's been great that we've continued. But with that, there's so much pressure, because suddenly you're like entertainer, you're a teacher. Yep. You don't get a break. Particularly it's fallen on the mum shoulders. My husband doesn't have the flexible job, so I was always going to have the lion's share. And when he finished, he would obviously, be hands-on like he always is. But it's been a long time without any childcare support, without being able to see people, to have that contact. So mentally, it's been tough for all of us, as well as physically. I've put on weight, which isn't a big deal, but it's like I've put on half a stone. I know the average is like a stone, but you also, that knocks your confidence as well, because everything feels tight and you're like, oh
yeah, and again, and especially during that period, so many people were being active, and it's like you either were one of 2 people. You were either really active and doing PE with Joe, or you were just going and just like
and stuffing your face.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I definitely think there was a lot of comfort eating going on at the beginning. I think we're just not so active. So my kids, their schools, I was walking about 7 to 9 miles a day on average.
Wow.
So to take that out of my fitness equation, I think that's where I've put on weight, really. And it's not a big deal, and we should be kind to ourselves, but there's lots of things that then add up, because you're exhausted, you're tired, you miss contact, you're working in a very different way, but you're also the pull of having the responsibility to kind of educate your children. And actually, in many ways, there's so many silver linings.
Yeah.
I feel closer than ever with my kids. I feel like they've really grown during this time. Like, my 10-year-old is kind of nearly as tall as I am, which is a bit like scary. Although someone asked if I was a sister yesterday, so I was like, that's nice.
See, so lockdown has been good to you.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just the most surreal of times, really. So we're kind of getting back to normal, but we still don't know what that normal's going to look like. So.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've got so much to cover today.
Sorry,
no. But if we go right back to the start of your career, I mean, you were a TV and film director first, working more kind of behind the camera rather than in front of it. I mean, and that's probably a decade ago now?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, and this is one of the things that lockdown has done for me. I've read loads because my commute's gone, because I live in Windsor, and I used to commute to London a lot. And in all that time saved, and also the fact that I didn't need to break my day with school runs and things, I've just read loads, I've watched loads, and I felt really inspired. I've actually almost finished on a first draft of a film screenplay.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, which I think it's like a comedy about two mums that find themselves at the Cannes Film Festival, and it's very much based on myself and a friend of mine. I'm going to change the names. But
they're all going to know now because you just said it.
No, the friend in question knows.
Yeah.
I rang her and said, this is what I mean. And that's been so lovely to actually do something quite different. But it was about 10 years ago where I was a TV director and and a filmmaker, and actually had started to, win some lovely awards in the industry and really kind of work. Because it's tough as a female director.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you. Like, how was it 10 years ago as a female film director?
Yeah,
I mean,
tough.
did you come up against a lot of challenges?
Yeah, loads of challenges. I mean, so I did an MA in screen drama and direction at Goldsmiths, University of London, a great place to study film, and kind of lots of kind of big directors had come from out of there, like Steve McQueen and like some amazing people. So I was really lucky to have studied that. And when I finished, my graduation film was about two warring kebab shop owners, Greek and Turkish Cypriot, and it won like a Peace Award, and it went all over the world to film festivals. And it was kind of a bit of a shock that it had done quite well, because it was like my first short film. But that opened a lot of doors for me, and it was a really interesting time. I had like working title, like Universal say, we love this film, like, have you got an idea for a feature film? And it was I was so green and naive. I was like 21, 22. I'd worked in the industry in Yorkshire. Like, I remember getting like work experience at Calendar from like from like a really young age. I think it was like my GCSEs.
Yorkshire News.
Yeah, amazing. Like, I remember going on location with them somewhere, Scunthorpe, to do some outside broadcast. I don't remember. But I mean, I'd always done telly, and my parents had done some telly. So growing up, I'd been on set. I knew how exciting that was. And I was a storyteller. So, but to sort of the grad film, just to fast forward, because I don't want to give you my whole blooming life story, you'll be asleep. I had basically won some awards with this film, and then I got a job at Redbus, who are now Lionsgate UK. And that was such an education. So for a year, I worked in every part of that. And they were the people that made Bend It Like Beckham at the time. They distributed it. And that was a huge hit in America as well as the UK. So can you imagine being in like the heart of a film company that everything from script to screen to press and advertising. And they gave me a lot of opportunities in the sense that I was a script reader, so I was reading the most accomplished screenplays, and I would write all the reports on them. I would recommend whether they should buy movies. I started there as a runner, and very quickly they'd watch my film, and they even gave me like an office one day a week to write a screenplay. It was bonkers.
At that time, that must have been like absolutely incredible to be so in the thick of it at that time, and just be work and progress to a point then where I'm not sure kind of how it was for you, but it was very similar for me, that when you then start to think about having a family, it becomes very scary then to kind of move away from that, or to focus on a family when you've just been thrown into the thick of an amazing industry that really you can be quite disposable in. When you started to approach that time in your life, did you feel any form of, were you worried?
Yeah, I mean, what happened was I kind of went and did a short film called Broken, and then I won an award from Channel 4, and then that had gone into some really big film festivals. And then I started working for Bob Geldof's company, and I think it was 10 Arts at the time, and I made social documentaries. So I had kind of really got a leg into the industry, so to speak. I mean, I'd worked very hard to do that. And then I knew that if I didn't have a baby, I might not be able to have a baby because I had polycystic ovaries, and I was told at 19 that I need to think about having a baby before I'm 30. I could have an infertility.
Wow.
So I remember thinking, what would be the pinnacle of my career? And okay, to someone that could be a BAFTA, an Oscar, make your own movie. But I was like, if that's ever going to happen to me, which I didn't think I thought, that's like the pinnacle, the dream, let's say, or it was to make something that would be really accomplished. But then if I didn't have a child, would it be worthwhile? Like, what are my values? What matters to me? And I was lucky that I met my husband during our uni years. So we've been together quite a long time. And so actually when I was 27, 28, we'd been together quite a while, and we were both sort of, because he's very mature anyway, and he always was for his age. We were both kind of like, I don't think I was fully ready to have a baby when I did.
Right.
I think that, I feel like I had a lot of maturing to get through. Anyway, but I was lucky that I conceived quickly within 3 months, and I was directing on set, pregnant and things, which was tricky.
And how old were you then?
So I think it was 28 then.
Wow, that is
or
an
27.
achievement.
Yeah, and I remember I remember a sound man, and I've mentioned this before, not his name, but I don't even remember his name. But I was 4 months pregnant, and I was directing something, and we had, famous cast, and it was and he turned around in front of everybody and said, don't you think you're taking a massive risk being pregnant? You've won these awards, your film's doing really well, you're making what a huge risk in front of everyone. And when you're pregnant, you're hormonal anyway. So I felt the tears pricking, and I had to run to the loo, and I just felt so disrespected and undermined in front of, from your industry. As a director, you are leading the vision. You're the mum of the set. And to suddenly and also I thought, I'm pregnant. What do you want me to say to that? And yes, I was scared, but I knew that I wanted to not miss out on being a mum. I've always been maternal. So it was kind of no, I need to do this. And I was really naive. I thought that it would be very easy to have a baby and work in the industry. I wouldn't have changed. I still wanted a baby. So even if I hadn't been naive, but wow, that was a wake up call. So I had, and I had a really traumatic birth, so that was tricky. And then I directed some commercials when Oliver was 1, and that was hard. I was filming in Manchester, I was away from him. It was really a weird time to you're a mum, your whole life has changed.
Yeah, and your priorities as well. Your priorities completely changed. I remember being very similar in the sense that, when I graduated from drama school, I was like, yeah, what's the dream again? It's the BAFTA, it's the Oscar, it's this, it's that. But then I don't know what it was. I also wanted really badly to have a family and to create a stable, happy family. My mum was a single mum, and it was difficult growing up. I've talked about it on the podcast before. I've had my mum on this podcast, and we've talked about those years. And I really desperately wanted to create a family. That was equally a big achievement that I wanted, and it just felt at the time you couldn't really have both. It was hard.
100%.
You can't be so committed to the entertainment industry and be equally committed to your family. Something often has to give.
I think the industry is at fault, the culture of the industry. I think generally, if you look at the workplace, maternity rights are just really far down on the rung of, and actually it's really tricky for us as parents, because you become a parent and you become a mum, and the workplace is really inflexible. There's no real respect for mums and working mums, really. But now, since this crisis, since COVID, we've proved that we can work remotely and we can work flexibly, and we can homeschool and work. So I think this was the real kick up the butt that the whole culturally as society needed to pay more respect. So in a way, me becoming a blogger was a reaction to knowing that I couldn't work 12-hour days and be there for my kid. I tried it didn't work. You can't be in two places at the same time. So I set up a blog not thinking it would become a business at all. I didn't even know that was possible. I was like the new wave of bloggers in the UK.
Yeah.
So no one knew. We knew in America there were these like millionaire bloggers, but that just seemed inconceivable and just like a pipe dream. And also it wasn't even a dream at that point. My dream was to get back to directing and to make this and to sort of find myself in a way. I started a blog, just a very good friend of mine, he's a filmmaker, Aman Kaitapia, had said to me whenever I rang her, she wasn't a mum at the time, and I'd share all this stuff about motherhood and how bizarre it was and kind of the politics of these baby groups and new mums, and oh my God, I was just drowning and I just needed a hug. and I was like, and I made some nice friends from these groups, but generally it felt like
it's quite
crazy.
alien, isn't it? Like if you've, I think as well, coming from the entertainment industry, it's so fast and it's so like, in the moment and quick. And you have to, it's going to sound really bad this, but you have to think like a man all the time because it's normally the men that are running the show. And so like,
that's
you have
an
to
interesting observation.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You kind of have to, but you don't get to often show that maternal side and to be caring. Everything's got to be so quick and focused and bam, bam, bam. And I think probably like what you were saying there about starting your blog and having that feeling of going, wow, this is really alien to me. And even the politics of the friendship groups, the school groups.
And then it continues.
It continues, definitely. And so, when you were being so honest in your experiences, what was the reaction from your readers at the time?
So, I mean, we talk of readers, it was like my mum
reading
my blog. And it's like, I started this blog because I would ring Aman Kai up and be like, oh my gosh, this is so weird and I'm so bored. Like, because like you say, we were used to this like dynamic, nourishing, busy, energetic world and industry. And as women, we had to prove ourselves.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You have to be there.
And you have to be like so, it's such a tough, pressured industry. And, I'd often turn up on set and if the crew hadn't met me before, they assumed, and there's no disrespect to the story, they never assumed that I was the director. They thought it was an actress. I went to a very famous production company for a meeting with the exec, and at the time, they're still big now. And they actually just assumed that I was auditioning, because they were auditioning in the basement. And I remember they went, yeah, you're just three there. I sat there for like 20 minutes and they're like, and I nearly auditioned for a part. And I'm like, no, actually, I'm here to meet like the boss. And they're like, oh, sorry, didn't realise that you were the screenwriter that was here for that meeting. So there's a lot, and I tried to change that. I thought maybe I look like too feminine. I'd sort of change my hairstyle. And I was like, why am I feeling so pressured to kind of sort of conform to this stereotypical notion of what a director is. Things have changed massively now.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is when I started my blog, so my friend was like, I just started. And then very quickly, people were like following and commenting. And I remember every single friend and family member that commented on like my first blog post and then my Facebook things. And at the time, although I was like dealing with a traumatic birth, I wasn't ready to talk about those things. So I used it as a form of therapy, escapism. I talked about moving back to Leeds from London to be near my family. We actually did a little detour to Bristol and I moved back to Leeds. So it was just real. And within 6 weeks or even less, an advertiser approached me and said, would you advertise like our sixth form?
Wow.
I think it was like Bradford College or something. I don't know, or to advertise our college. And I was like, I didn't even know what they meant. I was like, what do you mean? I just write about my life. And they said, yeah, but if we tell you all about our courses and we have a call, and then would you be open to advertising? And I think they were going to pay me 50 quid. And I was like, okay, that's like really easy money for like 1 hour's work. We're going back like 2010
Yeah,
now,
I was going to say
right?
it's a long time ago in terms of the start of the industry.
Oh my gosh. And then very quickly, things just grew. And I got to a point where I was pregnant with my second child and I was essentially working full-time hours, but in a very like flexible way, and then when my baby was born, I remember doing jobs and he'd be asleep on my chest. And it was just, and I felt like this was the gold at the end of the rainbow. I was like, wow, how have I stumbled across a job that I have control over? Autonomous. I don't have any gatekeepers. I don't have people telling me we've commissioned this. We're going to make this documentary. We're going to. It was like hit publish, work comes, and I started to realize that actually this should be my full-time job because I was earning more at that point 2 years in than I was as a director ever historically because people were gravitating advertising, and then now it's such a huge industry.
Well, it is. Yeah, I mean, 'cause I was going to say you were kind of back then, you would have been on that first wave of bloggers that actually created a brand. And, moving
accidentally,
from... accidentally. Well, I was going to ask, was it an accident or was it a conscious decision of going, right, I've got this audience, now I'm going to visit all kinds of different platforms because of your background?
Yeah, I definitely think I was very lucky that in 2010 I happened to stumble across blogging, and I didn't start it for a career. I knew of nobody in the UK that was earning. And actually I had a 5-month break in between when I was developing a project. Something was optioned for BBC comedy, which didn't end up getting made. But so I was distracted for quite a while. But I started and I got these jobs through and I thought, wow, this is interesting. Then I went back to directing when Oliver was a year old. And all the way it was trickling. It was like a side hustle. And then it sort of, as the industry started gravitating online, now fast forward 10 years and COVID has accelerated digitization, automation, so many things are run by robots. And this is now, it's not even a future thing. And very sadly, lots of people are going to lose jobs. So they have to upskill digitally. It's not even a choice anymore. 10 years ago, it was like, I had journalist friends that said, oh, I'm not going to blog, I'm not going to go online. It's not possible. Very sadly, newspapers are closing, magazines are closing. And this is kind of where we are historically, And if you look at the way our children consume stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're the future generation. And there's really interesting developments around that. So it's important that we embrace that. There should always be a place for more traditional. And I think, but it's just the way we consume. So for instance, people are very unlikely to tune in at a specific time unless it's a match, like a football match or the Eurovision. People generally just choose and curate their own timetable of viewing.
Yeah, definitely.
And people like Netflix are doing so well because, they've really been there from the start and they've understood the way things. I think there's a lot of people that have sat back and said, oh, we're really good at our jobs and we know, and they've completely misunderstood the consumer and the viewer and the reader. And now things have changed. Well, so I've just been very lucky, and obviously my background helped. The fact I could write, film make, or I was a filmmaker. Those things, of course, they've helped me.
I was going to say, so getting to that point where obviously you did go into the production company when you were 22 and had to do all those different jobs and learn all of those different skill sets and direct and edit and everything else. That now it's basically that is kind of what's running the world with a brand is content creation, and you were essentially doing that before anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I directed online ads for fashion brands. I was, a lot of the documentary stuff was also going online. I think that, this was the perfect career for me to move into. Now, obviously, I do want to, like I say, I've written this screenplay and I'd love to direct again. I am still directing because I'm directing myself and stuff and my family. It's just we're being honest and natural and truthful, but we're still creating a film and an advert, and and it's really helped with telly stuff because obviously, although I was behind the scenes mostly, I know how things work, and I know about lighting and I know about eye lines and. And I was directing short films that were shot on kind of 35mm, and I was very lucky that I worked with some of the world's greatest cinematographers and, just brilliant people that were working really high up on Star Wars films. And I feel like I've had two lives almost, this massive, incredible education. I mean, I got my master's really young, and then I was exposed and worked with brilliant people who just really believed in my scripts. That was it. It was I'd worked really hard on these 2 short film screenplays, and that attracted amazing actors, brilliant talent, because you're only as strong as the weakest person in your team. And I really miss the collaborative element of working with actors, drawing out performances. My dream is to combine those careers. And I've created an audience, quite a substantial audience, particularly on my blog and on Pinterest and Instagram. These are the handles that I can also market stuff to.
And do you think as well, in the time that we're living, look at TikTok. I mean, everyone's a filmmaker now with TikTok. Yeah. I mean, as you said, whether it was an accident or whichever, you were right there at the right time with all these amazing skills to kind of elevate your brand past other people, past other people's blogs that have now enabled you to kind of go on, as you say, make films, continue doing the job that you trained to do and that you love, whilst bringing your kids in? Because I've seen your kids as well getting really involved, aren't they? I mean, and that is the future. My son wants to be a YouTuber. He's
they all do, don't they? Everyone
and
does.
is that nice for you as well, having it as a family project?
Yeah, I mean, so when I first set up my blog, for about 10 months, I didn't share a picture of my child. I just sort of thought, I don't really know what we're into here, I'm not sure. And then people started asking about things, and I really sat down carefully with my husband and said, should we, share him and his picture? And I know he can't decide, but we decided that we felt comfortable in doing that. And I really respect people that don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I think for my kids, they've had the most wonderful kind of experiences in life, in part due to my job. So for them, they're never forced to do things. And if it's something that they don't feel comfortable with, or I want to change something, that happens. Like, there's no pushing them into things. And I try and be really honest in what I share online. So they're not always like super smiley in every single bit, because that's not life. Like, we're human. I'm not always smiling. I'm upset. And I think for me, I've always tried to be really honest in depicting our lives. I had a really big thyroid operation 2 years ago that I've only recently recovered from. It was a really tricky time in my life. And I was really honest about that period. And I had so many women reach out to me saying that they'd had a similar operation or they had thyroid cancer. And I was very lucky that it was benign, my lump. But, what I went through was tough. And I am not scared to share that. And I know that to some extent we do have a very lucky life, And a friend of mine coined this term, pretend rich. Which is like, you get to do, like Jackie said, you get to do these kind of bonkers things.
Yeah.
But you also we're decent people and we're not big-headed about stuff. And I think because I worked in this industry, there's very little that would, well, if anything, would ever go to my head. Maybe it's because I'm Northern, Yorkshire. It's the Northern thing. I actually feel really embarrassed if people treat me like different. I'm like, no. And I believe in equality. And I think for me, this has been a big driver through sharing my know-how. I was one of the very first bloggers to ever share how to earn so that to empower other people. I didn't need to do that. I wanted to do that. I shared, everything in my book, Mumboss, about building a brand. I welcome people. I don't want to be the best or the only one or to corner a market. Like, that doesn't drive me. What drives me is to do things that excite me and things that make me happy. And I also take great pleasure in helping other people. And I wonder if that's I come from a long line of teachers. So, my granddad was a head teacher, my mum was a teacher, so many people on both sides were teachers. And I also taught. So after uni, I lectured at unis, I taught English GCSE in between gigs and then working for film companies and things. And I really want to help other people. And that's, people can believe that or not believe it, but that honestly has driven so much of what I do.
But I think that's what's amazing. I mean, this is your book. This is Mumboss.
Thank you.
There it is. And it is amazing, because again, for me personally, I only kind of stumbled into this online world about 4 years ago when I was just writing a few things about my life with Fred at the time. And again, it was very accidental. And I'd seen your book and I'd seen, what you were about. And I was like, wow, this woman's created a career and, she's working with her children, but she's actually doing things she enjoys. And it was interesting to follow your journey from somebody that was at home and, I'd left a big job because I couldn't handle kind of both of the lives, and then to see you go and create an amazing brand and to read what you've written as well and how inspiring that is. I mean, it really helps because there are loads of women out there that really feel conflicted and they want to be able to have both, but they don't know how to do it. And how you describe things in your book and how it's very realistic as well. And, you're very honest about things and how hard you do have to work. It's not a breeze. People think blogging's a breeze.
Oh my God,
and it's
so much work.
It might be 17-hour days, but it's 17-hour days probably around when your kids are asleep or 100%. When you're doing breakfast. And, to share that knowledge is fabulous.
And let me tell you, hitting a 10-year mark as a blogger, I found that this year has been so different in many ways, in the sense that there were so many months where I'm slogging 60-hour weeks, craziness. what's happened, and I'm so glad that it has, is over the last few years, I would say 2 years, maybe 2.5, I've really genuinely found greater balance.
It's hard to have downtime.
The thing is, we have kids because we want to see our kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we want to be a mum, let us be a mum, you know, like, so ultimately, I think what was a gift and an actual gift for me as a blogger was going, wow, I can have a career that's on my kitchen table, that's in my laptop, that sits in my phone, that that allows me to do school runs or nursery things or to be with my kids and to actually like not miss out on being a mum, because I do want to be a mum and my kids need me and I need them.
Yeah.
So, and actually I tried the going back to directing and it wasn't quite working for me. I felt I was in Manchester, my kid was in Leeds, I felt ill, I wanted to be near to him. It felt really unnatural. I felt that the sacrifice was too much, but I was going to continue had my blog not kind of become a viable business, because that was what I trained in. And so I felt very lucky that it kind of picked up to the extent where I could have another baby and have this business. And then fast forward 10 years. Now, there's been times people don't talk about the compromise. Of course, we work really hard.
Yeah.
60-hour days. I wrote my book, Mumboss, between the hours of 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning because there was no time to write it otherwise, because I was working. I had, you know, my kids. It was just impossible. Like, how can you do that? So you've got to make sacrifices, but it's about saying to yourself, are these the sacrifices I want to make? It's not imposed on you by an industry, or it's not.
Yeah.
You are in control. And I think that's the beauty of working digitally. And we've all sort of caught up with that idea now.
I've said I like to steer my own ship. I'm not very good at somebody else being the captain of my ship. I'm like, I don't like these waters. I want to get out of them. And so I'll take myself out of them. And maybe that's the control freak in me. But that's kind of how I was feeling about developing my business. Was I was just thinking, you know, and at first I did think, you know, people were kind of looking at me kind of going, oh, you're a blogger. You know, and there's this
there
whole
is a
weird
snobbery
snobbery and
it.
this terminology of like, oh, and I was like, no, I don't just do that. And I like fought really hard against it. But I think with people like yourself, you know, with Gwyneth doing Goop, you know, building this amazing lifestyle brand, and
Meghan Markle,
Victoria from In the Fro, you know, building an
Massive
amazing brand. You've got people who are genuinely creating businesses that they run, female-led businesses, women that don't want to compromise and that just want to say, right, I can have it all and it will be in my control. Yeah. And I'm going to have to sacrifice, but I made that choice. It's down to me. As you said, it wasn't imposed on me. It's something that you live and die by your own sword. Don't you? If you see what I mean? It's like you've got to have the courage of your convictions and go, okay, well, if it goes wrong, it's my fault.
And you know, the difference is, it was like with this TV thing I had with BBC Comedy, and I'm not in control. Like, it's up to them if it gets made or not, and if we can get the actors for it. And that didn't end up happening. But around that time, my blog sort of started to gain momentum. And I remember thinking, I'm not reliant on anyone to approve this. And actually, I created a mini BBC myself. It's like, you know, I didn't join them. I just thought, okay, that didn't work for me. But actually, I am working with global brands and I am creating content. And I'm, you know, as a director, would I have now? I don't know, but equally, and I have become increasingly on camera from being a director. So I did a bit of on-camera stuff, like I presented something on BBC Two to help screenwriters.
And do you enjoy that side of it?
Yeah, I do. I hate watching myself back. I hate the sound of my voice, which I know sounds very different, and you also look quite different. I very, very rarely ever watch anything. The only time I have to watch stuff is obviously if I'm with my editor and we're cutting a reel and I have to approve stuff and then I have to watch little bits, or I've created like an ad and I need to see it. I don't feel comfortable. I'm learning to become comfortable with being uncomfortable, but that's the truth. And when I tell people, they're like, you seem very confident. But I think that coming from this industry, we've had to appear confident to get jobs. It's a bit like someone said in America, you know, if you play yourself down, which is a very kind of British kind of thing of like, they're just like, okay, so you're not getting the job then because you can't, you're like, you don't think you're good. Because America's very much like, I can do this.
So this is something that I've kind of battled with in my own head for so long, where I grew up watching American television and musicals and movies, and my granddad used to say to me when I was watching American films, like, you've got to be a triple triple threat. You've got to be able to do everything. That's how they do it in Hollywood.
It's true though.
But yeah, if you do that in this country, you are absolutely slated. If you appear too confident or too push yourself out there, you'll be attacked for it. So what you end up doing is you end up then being very modest and very humble. And then, as you say, you don't get the job because somebody more confident will get it.
I think it's a real balance. You know, I think it's very likable to be modest, but I also think it depends on your audience, and it depends if you're talking to a US audience. I've got quite a big US audience on my blog and my Pinterest, and my Pinterest alone reaches like 1.3 million people a month of unique. So for them, that's mostly Americans.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tailoring your content a bit. But actually, why are we scared to sort of say, yes, we're capable, yes, we can do stuff? I think there's a lot of sexism in the industry, in the world, that's diminished us, made us have to feel small. Yeah. And I often think, you know, if a man said that, would he be questioned? So I think it's really, really important to sort of really check yourself and work out kind of, because what we say to ourselves does really affect how we think of ourselves. And after my operation with my thyroid, I had 2 years of like on and off of therapy that really, really helped me. It was the second time I had therapy. I had therapy after traumatic birth and I was really, really low, like rock bottom. And that helped me. It gave me like an emotional toolkit that allowed me to even get pregnant again and sort of rebuild, because I was very, very, you know, I was a shell of myself at that point. And my blog contributed to helping me regain my voice and confidence again. And so after this, I had therapy again, and it only finished like a week ago. And so I went in for health anxiety because I'd obviously had this big op that meant I couldn't breathe very well for a while and things like that. You know, it was quite traumatic. So I naturally, lots of people get health anxiety because you're trying to control things. So I was worrying about things around my health a lot more than I should have been. And this therapy was great. So I went in to have therapy to help with that. And actually, what I ended up realising was there was loads more things I needed therapy for. I was saying this to one of my best mates yesterday, and she was like, yeah, you didn't realise how many problems you had. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Go to therapy to get yourself sorted out.
But it was amazing because what she taught me was that she taught me greater self-belief. She taught me the ability to not care so much about what people are saying. Because there's a lot of... Can we swear on here?
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit written about me online, and a lot of libelous shit as well, and a lot of untruths. And actually, it's just about going, listen, it's not about subjectivity. Like, people are going to hate you, they're going to like you. And, you know, sometimes that's got to do with you, but most of the time it's to do with people's... Like, I remember a girl coming up to me at uni on pretty much my first day and said, you look like the bitchy girls that made my life hell at school, the kind of popular pretty girls that were awful to me. And she said, instinctively, I really don't like you. So, and I was thinking, it was kind of like a backhanded compliment in a way. She was saying like, but I didn't want to be, I wasn't a mean girl. And I felt like, and I said, can you just give me a chance? Because I know you've had a really horrible experience. But like, and then,
I'm nice.
Yeah, I'm nice. And we became like really firm friends. But it's people are going to bring baggage with them. You know, people are going to come to you. And what is scary at the moment is I think that people are scared to make mistakes as well. We're all human. I'm not talking about really grave mistakes here, but I'm talking about maybe saying the wrong thing or doing things. And I think for my children, I want them to know that they are going to mess up and they've got to grow and they've got to learn. And I'm a bit cautious. I feel uncomfortable with cancel culture. I think that we've got to make people accountable, and but we've also got to teach people. Otherwise,
you've got to let people learn. And I think, you know, and see the error of how they've done something, and then maybe go, oh, actually, and give them a chance to check themselves, as you say. I mean, your book is going to be released stateside soon, you know, but under a new title, The Working Mom.
It's become
The
Americanized.
Working Mom, and that's going to be in the autumn. I mean, again, as you said, you've got a large US following anyway, but how, because that could come under, you know, fire or whatever. I mean, do you feel prepared? Do you feel ready for that book to be released out there?
Yeah, I don't think it's a very divisive book. I think that it's a book that's very helpful. It's nice that it's being published out there because American audience have like waited like months to get their delivery from the UK. So it's nice to it's out in the US and Canada. And I mean, I've got a decent audience out there. It's not massive, do you know what I mean? But it's a substantial audience. So it's really nice to be able to communicate. I think that over 10 years, I've become a lot more thick-skinned, and therapy has really helped me to just also understand that I'm human as well, and that not everyone's going to like me, and how to kind of just not let people destroy the way I feel about myself. What therapy does in CBT is it provides you with this kind voice that's your therapist, that you replace all your nastiness with, that you're doing to yourself. Okay? Yeah. And obviously, like you're in the public eye, and people will say things. They'll say, I've had everything from I've put on weight, I look too thin, my kids are this. You get people, but there's an understanding that you are putting yourself out there to some extent.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit public facing, so I get that people are going to have an opinion. They're not always going to agree with me, and that's fine. It's really what it's about, not allowing that to destroy your self-belief and to stop you, to sabotage you. And a lot of the time, I think for 7 negatives you receive, it takes 7 positives to combat 1 negative. So, if you're getting a lot of abuse, it can affect you. I'm lucky I don't get a lot.
Yeah.
But I think it's really, really taught me, this therapy, to pause, to not allow things to get to me in the same way, and to be strong, and to and that takes daily work.
I mean, as I was, because we will have to wrap up shortly.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's just that, I was saying at the beginning, it's been really tough for everyone. And as you just said then, protecting our mental health is so important. And more than ever now, as we, come out of this pandemic, there are going to be job losses. There are going to be, people that have lost people during this time. How is protecting your mental health going to manifest itself for you and your family going forward?
Yeah, I have been really mindful, and the same with my children. So, we've pretty much stuck to homeschool, but there's been, the odd week of early half terms. And we go out a lot. We get out a lot, as in like we're very outdoorsy, so we walk loads, and we're out in the countryside in Windsor. So I think that's really helped. But also it's about accepting the days that are really tough, and accepting what, I had a really down day the other day, and just knowing that lowering the expectations that every day is going to be like a happy day. Like, there's a lot that's going on. There's a lot of pressure on us. What I hope people will also see, that this has been a terrible time, really tough, particularly those that have lost loved ones. There is a chance now to also consider making a change. What was it during this period? Were there people that you were around that weren't actually making you happy, that since you've had that distance, you can say, do you know what? After this, I'm really going to distance myself. Yeah. It's not about like falling out and but just to say, actually, I'm not sure that relationship or that, don't do anything rash. I still love my husband, thankfully. And there have been a few times I've Googled internet divorce for my whole family. But generally, we've come out of it stronger. But ultimately, I really think we need to look at our lives, our work lives, our schedules. I think that I was burning myself out a bit before lockdown, because I was trying to please everybody. Particularly I did too many long commutes, and I was, and it's hard because as freelancers, we don't want to say no, because even though I've been busy, thankfully, for 10 years, I still think I might not get work tomorrow.
Yeah, it's conditioned. Right? We're conditioned into
because
it. Yeah.
We were freelance creators. So ultimately, I think though, now I'm just like, wow, take a step back. Don't stress about things. Look after yourself. Prioritise yourself. Because I think as mums, we're helping everybody else. And I would also say, think about change, because it's a bit like, obviously, it's a very morbid maternity leave right now, in the sense that we've all had this enforced pause. But it's important to go, can I do some things in the same way that I did and change my career? Because this is really, digitization is happening, automation, billions of people are going to lose their job. So we need to go, how can we upskill? So I've actually created a company called the Working Mothers Academy, where it's all online videos, and there's, an Instagram bundle that helps you redo your Instagram, essentially. And I'm teaching people how to change their lives. And you only need to dedicate a few hours, watch these online courses. They're really thorough and comprehensive and hopefully watchable, because it's just me chatting to you like a friend, so that you can change your lives. So and that's the workingmothersacademy.com. And I think that, the feedback so far, we've had lots of people that have said, wow, so they're starting blogs, they're starting e-businesses, and it's kind of taking like what I did with Mumboss, where people would literally stop me in the street and say, okay, so I've left my job. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's all on you.
Yeah. But luckily, they've really done well. Or even if you don't leave your job, you might want to know how to up your game online. You might not know about SEO, which is the most important thing to be ranked online. You might not understand how to create an audience or get PR. Like, PR is so important for everybody to know how to pitch to. So I think that what I've done is, because it's very hard to think that you know what someone else doesn't know. I just assume everybody has the same experiences than me. And it's taken other people going, actually, Vicky, you need to share all this and you need to do this. So I hope it's going to help a lot of people. And Mumboss comes out with a new edition in the UK on the 20th of August, which I'm really excited about, because it's not got a picture of me on the cover.
I love this picture of you. I mean, Vicky, it has been an absolute delight to talk to you
today. It's been wonderful. I could talk to you all day.
I know,
it's like one of my most favourite podcasts. Experiences.
Thank you.
Don't tell the others.
Thank you so much. I mean, thank you also for sharing all of your amazing advice and your experience with me. I feel really inspired, and I'm ready now to go and boss it myself. So thank you. I hope you guys at home also have enjoyed our chat as much as me, and that you found it all very helpful and inspiring too. If you'd like to see more from Vicky, you can visit her website, www.honestmum.com, where you can also order her best-selling book, Mumboss. You can also find her at Instagram at Honest Mum. And for more well-being, fashion and beauty, you can visit us at our website, www.thecapsule.co.uk, where you can also catch up with our previous podcast episodes by visiting the In Conversation page and subscribing to any of our podcast channels and YouTube. Do leave us your rates and reviews, as we love hearing your feedback. If you're a social butterfly, you can also catch us on Instagram and Facebook at Official Capsule. I will be back next week with another very special guest, but today all that's left for us to say is goodbye. So it's goodbye from Vicky.
Bye.
And goodbye from me.